Welcome to Michigan's True Spirit podcast, brought to you by North River Vodka. North River Vodka, it's Michigan's true spirit. Now, here's Chris and Eric.
Strange wind surrounds us here at the peninsula. Thank God you found us. We could be good friends or whatever.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast, episode 7. I am Chris and I am here with Eric as always. Hello, Eric.
Hello, friends. I'm glad you're back with us.
I like how you call everybody friends. You assume that they like us, or are you saying that it's only friends that are listening to our podcast? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, well, if you're an enemy, don't listen. No, I default to friends. Somebody will cut me off in traffic, and instead of raging, I'm like, okay, friend. All right, just come on over, friend. You know, maybe it's a little passive aggressive, so even if I call you friend, it doesn't really cement our relationship. I'm sorry.
I rage. I rage. If you're going to be honest, though, we should say friends and family because, you know, the literally dozens of people who listen to our podcast involve some of my siblings, too.
Yeah, you have like, yeah, you're like the Duggar family or whatever. You have like a zillion siblings.
But you and I made about 2,800 close friends a couple of days ago. I mean, I think does it qualify as close friends when you like rub, I was going to say, I guess rub elbows.
What were you going to say?
When you rub body parts and swap sweat with strangers at a concert, they qualify as friends after that, correct?
You shared a moment together. Absolutely.
Yeah. Eric and I went to the where were we? 20 Monroe Live, GLC Live at 20 Monroe, whatever they're calling it these days to see Age the Elephant this weekend, along with Vlad Holiday and Hey Nothing.
Hey Nothing.
Correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
I enjoyed it.
So what'd you think of the show? Let's go into it briefly.
I really appreciate the venue. It's a little classier than like the Intersection or, you know, they do, you pay a premium, but it is nice. It is nice. I get a little, I don't really like the balcony situation because it feels just like you're stashing some people up there who are just like sitting and kind of observing. Like if you're going to have standing room only, just have it all be standing. That's what I do like about the Intersection.
I like 20 Monroe Live, and it is the smallest venue by far. I've seen Cage the Elephant 4 times, and by far the smallest. I saw him at Pine Knob, seen him at Van Andel. We saw him at the Deltaplex, which has been bulldozed?
I think it's been totally demolished.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Place
Place
was
is
just
just
concert venue ever.
Oh, it's just a pole barn in the middle of some Walker.
Big barn. Like they didn't even put a rug down to absorb any of the echo.
No,
like it was
they
a
didn't care.
terrible venue for sound. We can rip it because it no longer exists. But by far the smallest venue I've ever seen Cage. It was a good show. We were way to the side, but way up front. I like myself some Vlad Holiday. He opened for them the last time I saw them.
Yep. He played one song or 10. I couldn't really tell.
They were very similar in manner and demeanor and sound and pace, but I liked him, and Hey Nothing was fine. They were energetic. They had a lot of fun. I immediately determined that in like 10 seconds that they were folk punk. Like it was a weird combination, correct? Like it was
They were
punk.
They were 5 units of twang away from being a country band.
That's
a little bit of Southern accent, they would have had it.
And Casey Elephant always brings it. Lead singer was jumping around like a crazy man. He's got a little Mick Jagger in him. It was a good show. I enjoyed it. It was packed. It was a good time. So the only hard part was navigating my way after the show. Couldn't find my truck.
There are more than one parking garages in downtown Grand Rapids, evidently. And it's fair for any man to get them mixed up.
It was an adventure because I got detoured on my way to Grand Rapids and got detoured off the highway and somehow got detoured onto like a wet clay road in the rain and pulled my, truck with 5 inches of mud into a parking garage. And I knew which parking garage it was in, and then I went in the wrong one. And
listen, what do you drive? You drive a pickup truck? Okay. That's what they're for. Driving on dirt roads.
It's true.
Hey, nowhere, little bit twang.
Hey, nobody.
Country road.
Hey, nowhere. Close.
You were driving.
Close.
Hey, nowhere.
My car was hey, nowhere. So, welcome back to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast. We took a week off last week to relaxed from the amazing 6 episodes we put out before that. We thought you guys needed a time to catch up.
Yeah, it was a lot of
But
work.
we are back, and for the first time in several weeks, we're gonna have a guest.
You're listening to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast.
Welcome back to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast. I am Chris here with Eric, and we are here with Jason Beck, MLB.com reporter who has covered the Detroit Tigers since 2002. Welcome to the show, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. It is great to talk to you guys again.
That's the biggest lie ever told, but thanks for that. I appreciate that. How are you chilling out after this long, tumultuous season that the Detroit Tigers had?
You know what? I have been resting. I have not gone anywhere. I went to Comerica Park for the end of season media session, and that was about it. I did spend an extra day in Seattle as kind of like a recovery day, and kind of went around town, went around the market, the Pike Place Market, and went to a Sounders game. And
very nice.
Yeah. But that was about it. Since then, I've just been kind of, doing a combination of, what little writing I have to do right now, and, just kind of keeping as connected as I need to be while preparing for what'll probably be a long off season, but it comes with the territory.
Will you watch the games at all? Will you watch the World Series games, or are you kind of done?
You know what? I actually have been pretty glued in, especially on the ALCS and now the World Series, because the Mariners are a fascinating story and the Blue Jays are a fascinating story. And there's something different about being able to watch it as a non-working observer. I mean, I guess you can say as a fan, even though I'm not rooting really for either side, just kind of watching the baseball and kind of watching these plays unfold, and kind of, going through your, playing it out in your head, how, each manager is using their bullpens and doing all this and that. I'm sure Chris went through that for a few years after his beat writing days. And I think you kind of play it out and kind of figure out, okay, how's he going to do this? How's he going to, it's kind of fun to do that without having to worry about, okay, how am I going to write 750 words on this?
Right.
Just kind of worrying about, okay, this is interesting from this purely selfish standpoint.
It's interesting because you talk about taking a little time off or looking at it as an observer. I think I quit covering the Tigers in like 2000. I don't know if it was 15 or 16. I don't remember. I didn't watch 3 full baseball games until 2024. Like, I did not watch baseball for 8 years. Last year I tried, and I just didn't get into it. This year I watched a ton of Tigers games. I wasn't focused on it. I was doing other things, working or whatever. But I watched a ton of Tigers this year and a ton of playoffs. But yeah, I needed a 9-year flush. I think I needed everybody. I think you are the only person still there from when I was there. Like, there's not a player, a manager, a front office person, a media person. Like, it's you and McCoskey. I think that might be it.
I think you're right. I think you left right before, shortly before Cody Stavenhagen came on board.
Yep. Evan replaced
the
me.
front office has been flipped.
Yeah.
The coaching staff has clearly been flipped.
There's
it's
nobody
been
left.
like, it's kind of like a different world.
Yeah, and it seems like a different team, and maybe that's what I needed. It was just to just have a total reset from my time there. But anyway, we don't need to dwell on that. First of all, what we're supposed to do is talk about what we're drinking tonight. So Jason, do you have anything? Do you have anything in a glass?
So I have something in a bottle right now. I have the Oberon Eclipse.
Oh,
I believe it's the raspberry wheat version, because that's the only version I could find right now. And sadly, we've passed Oberon season. I've got it in my 24 seconds beer glass here. 24 seconds from Berkeley, Michigan.
Jason Beck is a pro. We're our amateurs. Look, he waited until we asked about the drink to pour it into the glass. He's got the right amount of head. Like, this is some pro stuff here.
I'm trying to make sure I look presentable here. So you're hopefully not too seasoned, but seasoned enough.
You're by far the most seasoned person here. Eric, what are you drinking, Eric?
I have a Manhattan, but I kind of broke the rules. I have it over a big cube. You should stir your Manhattans, serve them in a chilled glass with a cherry. But I broke the rules.
Beyond that, if people watch this podcast, and I hope people don't, I hope they just listen. We don't always record the segments in order, and they're going to notice that your drink got fuller as the podcast went on, which is going to be really unusual. We just act like you refilled it, right?
Pay no attention.
Like you
Pay no
pay no
attention
attention.
to the man behind the curtain.
Later, we're going to talk about bourbon. It's not like we've already talked about it, and you're just going to hear about it later. But in honor of that, I am drinking. I don't know if you've ever had this, Eric. This is Chestnut Farms
Oh, no.
Kentucky straight bourbon. I was at it's that giant liquor store, Total Wine and More, recently, and I was shopping around, and the salesperson sold me on this. Told me it was a great bottle of whiskey for under $100. So here we are, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Wow, going down market for you. Wow. Slumming it.
Slumming it with $80 whiskey. This
Yeah.
is the most expensive bottle of alcohol I've ever bought in my life. This $80 whiskey right here. So
Okay.
says the guy who sells expensive vodka. So
Mm.
anyway, Eric, fire away. What do you got for Jason?
Jason, thanks again for being with us. Appreciate you. You have just a lot of time with the club and really good insights. And, we've been thinking about, Detroit and Michigan sports. And of course, everybody's locked in on the Lions and what they've done. Everybody points to Dan Campbell as kind of setting the pace and the culture for the club. What sense do you have around the Tigers about who is setting the pace? Like is it the general manager? Is it AJ Hinch? Is it the manager? Is it a player, a cluster of players, the coaches? Like who's kind of, setting the pace, making the expectations happen around the club?
So I think naturally you have to start with AJ Hinch, the manager. I think, the way this club has been made in his managerial style kind of lends itself to that.
Sure.
I think he has a big influence on the culture. I also think that there are key players, almost all of whom came up through the organization, who kind of set the tone there. And that's kind of, one of the interesting things, and we were talking a little bit about this, about, having covered this team for so long and what keeps it fresh and what keeps it interesting is that you see different renditions of the team take on different identities as older players go out and younger players come in. I think what makes this team unique, not just among the Tigers, but maybe among a lot of major league teams, is that you have a lot of homegrown players, and a lot of them come from a couple specific cycles.
Sure.
There is the Scooble Casey Mize cycle, where, in the late 20 teens, where they drafted a lot of pitching, brought it up. Those guys came up right on the same time in 2020, and they've kind of emerged as the core of the pitching staff. And then along the same line, shortly after that, you have the hitting version of that with Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson and Kerry Carpenter, who all, they've been teammates since Double A Erie, if not earlier.
Right.
And they all came up, not around the exact same time, but around that same general time frame. And they were all drafted around, the same time. You combine them with, Dylan Dingler having come up. He was kind of part of that same cycle. It took him a little bit longer. Those guys having come up through the organization and having been teammates for so long at so many different levels, I think they set the culture for this team. And I think that's one reason why you see this team as close-knit as it is because these guys know each other. And it's a little bit different than what you saw from those contending teams of yesteryear.
Right.
You had Verlander and Granderson, but you had a lot of free agents. You had a lot of trade acquisitions. This team is built a lot more organic.
I saw a spring training segment one time where Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, I think during spring training, were living together, hanging out. Like they might be friends or whatever, but Victor Martinez and Miguel Cabrera were not living together. Like, not that I know of. Right. So I can see where that's maybe not a youth movement, but it's certainly they capture the essence of what's happening, around the club, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think at least one or two spring trainings, you had Ferguson, Riley Green, Parker Meadows, Dylan Dingler might have been part of that same group. Um, maybe Matt Manning or Casey Mize, Jake Rod, like they were all living in like this big spring training house.
Sure.
And like they were kind of all, so like it's hard to manufacture that type of culture, bringing in guys from the outside. And I think that's one of the strengths of this group. And and one of the interesting things over the last couple of years is the Tigers have added guys, including at this trade deadline, is seeing older players from other organizations, and especially guys who bounce around a little bit, try to integrate into that close-knit group. And it's usually fairly easy, but it can be an adjustment for guys because like you don't see that dynamic in a lot of places.
That's interesting because you're talking about them trying to integrate into a close-knit group where I'm guessing a lot of baseball clubhouses aren't necessarily close-knit groups. I mean, there are close-knit groups within a clubhouse, but not in clubhouse like throughout, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'll see, and you thought where like, those Tiger teams of like a decade ago had certain groups, had certain cliques. You would have like these circles. This team is generally more of a larger circle. They try to be fairly good about, bringing, welcoming guys, maybe more so than other teams, but it is an adjustment. I remember, when they traded for Charlie Morton, one of the things that Charlie Morton did was buy an espresso machine for the clubhouse. And, you saw guys try to, bring themselves into the coffee culture, which was fun to kind of see because I remember Daniel Norris having a similar type thing going on like 8 or 9 years ago, when he was around. You see a lot of influences from Matthew Boyd's time here. You see a lot of influences from, Javi Baez is somebody who was able to integrate himself into the group because, he predated a lot of these guys when he arrived, or he arrived around the same time as a free agent. So, and there's a lot of respect for what he did as a player before coming here. And the way he worked his way back into the fold has been kind of a core player. So it's an interesting mix.
Yeah, when you say that from an outside perspective, and I think, I mean, I'm on the outside and I've been in there for years, but I still think I can kind of see maybe the personality of a team watching it or observing it or reading quotes or whatever. But they do seem, it's interesting that you said they're much more close knit, and I think that comes with coming up together. It also comes with youth. It comes with not making, I always say the more money you make, the less you hang out with people and the more jaded you get in the major leagues. And I don't think that's universally true, but you don't see a lot of that.
That's why I live in isolation.
Yeah. You're just loaded. But it's interesting, like, because I when I think of the Lions, it's all about, we bring in guys who love football and just are hungry and want to play. And when you heard about the Tigers, their big mantra was, we're going to bring in people who control the strike zone. And to me, I don't think they're not there. I don't know that they're really getting closer, but I'm curious, like, is the personality, is the culture thing you're talking about, was that purposeful, or did that just happen organically because all these guys did come up together?
I think it happened organically because all the guys came together and, when they brought in, well, first of all, like when they did rebuild, when they first started to rebuild all the way going back to Al Avila and, Brad Ausmus, Ron Gardenhire in 2017, 2018, this whole idea was, okay, we've been a team that has brought in guys from the outside, trying to find free agents and trades and trying to build with proven guys. We're going to try to do it through the system now. This is how we want to do it. And so they started drafting and building with the idea of having waves of prospects, which is easy to say, it can be harder to do. I think the heavy investment that they had in pitching from 2017 through like 2018, 2019 kind of lent itself to building that pitching core. And then when they made the pivot to, okay, we need to start bringing in some more bats and drafting and signing that way, you started seeing that core build. And then when the Tigers brought in Scott Harris, during the summer of 2022, one of the things he talked about was, okay, we want to build a culture where we, bring up young players, we develop them, we make them better while they're here, and we try to retain good young talent. Well, that lent itself to the talent base that they had already coming up and trying to establish themselves. So, that kind of, those two factors kind of mixed together to lend itself to, this is, I think has been the goal for years. It might not have come about in quite the way all the people would have expected it. They certainly had some changes along the way, including in the front office. But, I think this was the idea that they had. And it's kind of the idea that as you look around other teams in the AL and NL Central divisions, you see some of these similar philosophies in that, okay, we need a talent base homegrown to build around. How much we can build around that base or how much base that homegrown factor forms varies from club to club.
I think probably one of the most pressing questions this offseason, and we would be negligent if we didn't ask you, and that's Skubal, right? So he's got one more season under contract. This reminds me of, back in the day when Verlander and Scherzer were coming up, there was decisions to make on those guys. Of course, I think the pocketbooks were a little deeper then, but where do you invest? Is he a worthy investment? If they can make it, or do you buy into that philosophy? Hey, we're gonna turn this over. We're gonna go young. We're gonna get prospects. We can't be the Dodgers. We can't be the Mets. We're going to invest in another youth movement. It strikes me as weird because still think of Skubal is pretty young, but they're gonna have a decision to make, right?
Yeah, that decision is pretty much now. Like
Yeah.
they kind of have to figure out where they're going. And really, like the decision whether or not to extend Skubal, that might have come and gone. I don't know in terms of when you can get him for the type of money that you would be looking to invest in. And when that open market, when free agency just becomes so close where, Tarek and Scott Boras can say, we're just 12 months away. Just say, stay, be as effective as you are, be the same pitcher you are, and stay healthy for 12 months. And we can hit the open market and we can see what's out there and we can have teams bidding up the price. And it's not unique to Skubal. It's what a lot of pitchers have, and really players in general have gone through over the years. I think it becomes, a unique factor pitching wise because there's always that injury factor. It's like, okay, what happens if this guy gets hurt? We kind of saw it with, Shane Bieber looked like he was going to be one of the big guys on the market a few years ago. And then he got hurt.
And Skubal's had Tommy John, has he not?
He had Tommy John while still in college in 2017 or 16 at Seattle U.
And he's a high energy, high effort, max out. You wonder, he's an institution in Detroit. You'd love to see him for the fans, but you kind of wonder how many bullets does this guy have left too? Just all the energy. But I just think it's a fascinating decision that they have to make because he's the best pitcher in baseball. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he's been able to keep this going for so long. I mean, it's not just this year and last. Like he was showing signs of this after he came back, over the second half of 2023. Like this is 2.5 years now where he's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, he's the best pitcher, but like even at the end of 23, you were saying it's like he might be the best pitcher in baseball like right now, and we can't wait to see if he can do it for a full season. Here he is 2 years later, he's still doing it, and he shows no signs of letting up. If anything, you kind of see him learning and adapting his game and kind of, one of the fun things about having covered this team for so long is kind of watching guys going through some of the similar learning processes that you saw guys go through, a decade or so ago, where it's like you kind of see Scooble, where it's like a year ago, Scooble's like, okay, I'm gotta throw max effort all the time because every pitch might be important to an outing. You never know when the most important pitch of an outing might be. And then you saw him this year where he wasn't pacing himself, but he realized ways in which like he saw the spots where he could get to a point where he could save his best stuff for last. And it was fun. When the Blue Jays were in town in, I guess would have been July. Scherzer was in town. We were talking with Scherzer. One of the things I always remember Scherzer saying was, I want my last 10 to 15 pitches of an outing to be my best pitches of an outing. And, a year ago, I think Scooble would have not scoffed at it, but said it's like every pitch has got to be important because you just never know when the situation that might turn a game. And then you saw him pitch more and more towards that philosophy where it's like he wanted to be peak, like the complete game against Cleveland where he throws 102 on his final pitch of the game. Like, I don't know if Scooble does that a year ago. And just talking with Scherzer a little bit about watching Scooble go through that process and how it reminded me of watching Max. I tell Scherzer that, and Scherzer's eyes light up. It's fun. It's like, it's guys need to go through it. And it's like, it's fun seeing those the different generations go through that, and it makes me interested to see how Scooble goes through this process. Now, Max and Verlander have been remarkable examples of health. Yep. And they've stayed, they've had their surgeries, but by and large, what they were able to do over the peak times of your career, they had a really extended peak. And now their second half of their careers, like they're still doing it. Now, some of it's on guile and some of it's on like you watch Verlander and Scherzer pitch at times, and it can't always feel good, but like they find ways to get it done. And like watching Scooble learn how to attack, like watching Scooble face Cleveland 3 times in a row and do like these little different things to adapt to, to try to throw a different wrinkle at the Guardians each time. Like one outing is like a few more curveballs to mix it in, which I've always felt like it would be nice to see him throw the curveball more. And then another time it might be like throwing a few more sliders. And then that time in the wild card series, he just throws gas and there's guys to hit it. Like that's the fun stuff watching Scooble and watching how he can do it. And how much longer can he keep this peak up? Who knows? But like right now he's doing it and he's presenting a really interesting case a year out from free agency as far as like how much you invest in this guy. It's a different investment to throw that type of money at a pitcher if you're, say, the Yankees or the Dodgers compared to the Tigers. You have to nail it. You have to be right on that. It's tough to like if you sign him to a certain amount of money and like then you take that average annual salary and you go, okay, if he has to have Tommy John again, like you're basically paying him for like a year and a half to rehab, not to pitch. It's easier for a team like the Yankees, Mets, or Dodgers to absorb that cost than it would be for say the Tigers. But then again, like like if any guy can come back from another injury like that and be lights out, it's Scooble. So it's like all these different things you got to weigh. Like it's fascinating. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but like you're at this intersection where like you either have to try to extend him, which seems like a long shot at this point, or you have to see what's out there for you on the trade market, which could be interesting if you get a few teams bidding on them. And if you can address other areas while still addressing the pitching, maybe the way that Dave Dombrowski did with the David Price trade, or you play it out and see where you're at a year from now, either with Scooble's help or with the free agent market, or even with the baseball market in general, with the potential for a work stoppage looming.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And the different CBAs setting different rules. Don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another wrinkle.
Jason, I'm fascinated, and I went from not watching Tigers for 10 years to like obsessing over this point. And Eric's heard me say this several times in the past few weeks. I'm fascinated with how the roster construction is going to go in the spring. If you keep Scooble, because I know, Scott Harris says there's no Scooble window, but it's your last year with the guy, and you're trying to balance that, like thread the needle with promoting prospects up from the minors, and you're mixing it in with a relatively young team already who's going to lose their veteran second baseman. Like they need a veteran hitter who doesn't strike out that much, and that's exactly what they're losing to start the offseason. Like how do you see them kind of finding the balance between youth, veteran, not blocking the young people, but getting people who do control the strike zone? And we don't need to nerd out on this for 20 minutes. We're supposed to be a Michigan general interest podcast. We need to dumb it down after this. But like, how fascinating is this offseason just from a, what are they going to look like coming out of spring training? And I haven't looked. I'm sure they got a bunch of guys they got to protect from the Rule 5 and put on the roster. Like it just seems like they've got a lot of challenges in the next 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, and if they do ride it out with Tarek, it'll be an interesting mix because like Kevin McGonigal, the prospects are coming. Kevin McGonigal could be here sooner than you think.
Yep.
If they want to give him a chance to, contend for Rookie of the Year and, give him a chance to try to win a job in spring training. Max Clark might not be far behind. Jose Brusinho, good slugging, switch hitting, like, pitcher / first baseman. He might not be far off from there as well.
Yeah.
You might need a little bit more time, but like those guys are coming at some point next year. At the same time, like you can't just call this a bridge year because you do have one more year of Scooble. Yeah. So, Scott Harris has done a very good job, or a fairly good job. Like there's been some hits and misses, but he's done a pretty good job at finding short-term signings to fill needs. Like what they've done the last couple of years with Jack Flaherty is probably more than you would expect out of it, a series of one-year deals. Yeah, there were guys who signed similar deals, last winter who ended up, performing better. But when you combine the two seasons, like it's probably more than you reasonably could have expected. There could be, or there should be bounce back candidates like that on the free agent market this winter if you want to try to, boost up the rotation similar along. Like hopefully you avoid a situation like Alex Cobb where, you sign a guy for $50 million and he ends up
nothing,
not even throwing a pitch. But like there are going to be guys out there. Hitting wise, it could be a fun market. Like, could you go in on Bregman again? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, like you have to go in thinking that, he just came off a really good year in Boston. He seemed to enjoy himself there. Like whatever you do interest wise on Alex Bregman is at least in part going to be played off to get a better offer from Boston. Like you could very well be basically just driving up the price for him to go back to Boston.
Yep.
It's like
in which
buy
case,
a house,
like
Chris?
you get played 2 years in a row. Like so, could happen, but like, is it worth the effort? That's what they have to figure out. They do have McGonigal working out at third base in the Arizona Fall League. They have Max Anderson as a third base option as well. There are other guys out there. We just heard of, a couple guys from the from Japanese ball who are going to be hitting the market. Like there will be options there where, but like how much do you weigh investing in those guys without blocking, like you said, without
Yeah.
blocking some of these prospects? I don't think they're going to want to go to a point where they block too much of their infield. Like,
Right.
and with opt outs, maybe it ends up being a moot point. Maybe Bregman does another one of these deals where he signs for like 4 or 5 years, but he has an opt out after one because maybe he wants to see what happens with, if he were going to come to Detroit, maybe he wants to see what happens with Skubal before he makes his own decision on his own situation or what they do with some other guys. So, but it's you're seeing like different waves of prospects coming through. Like Max Clark's arrival is going to come at somebody's expense. Like, does it put you in a different position with Parker Meadows, or Wenzel Perez, somebody like that? Do you have to try to figure out, okay, can we flip one of these guys and find ourselves some help in other areas? But like you said, like controlling the strike zone is another big thing, and like you look at like a Luis Arise, who who has won batting titles and who's notorious for being tough to strike out and big on putting the ball in play. Doesn't walk a ton, but he dominates the strike zone without very much power. If there is any place in baseball where you could see a guy like him fitting, it would be in Detroit, in a big ballpark where there are lots of areas to put the ball for hits if you put the ball in play. Maybe there's a value here that isn't there for him in some other markets where power is more of a premium. Like all these factors are going to make it interesting to see how this unfolds. I can't say I know how it's going to play out. I don't know if even the Tigers know because there's so many different market factors at work. But how they navigate it will be interesting.
It seems fascinating to me with if Skubal were gone or if Skubal had 3 more years, you could just put all those young guys in and just go for it and let the transition happen. But in his last year, I just think it's harder to pull that trigger. The good news for the Tigers and Tigers fans is they play in the AL Central. So no matter what path or tact they take, they should contend because it's just not very good. Like no matter what they do, I feel like they should be in contention next year.
On one hand, yes, like you find you have various teams in different stages of building around young talent. But I think you've seen signs to where Cleveland is going through that cycle, and Cleveland is not far off from having another bunch of young talent that can help push it again. Like you saw it when the fact that they put Chase DeLauter on their roster for the division series is crazy to me. But yet they were serious about it and they gave him meaningful at bats. Like that's a type of thing where it's like, you didn't even see the Tigers do that. So they have him. They have Travis Bazana, the former 1-1, on the way. He could be up at some point next year. Like and like that to me is part of the fun dynamic of the Central too. Is that I was talking with Kerry Carpenter about this during the division series. Is that a lot of these guys between the Tigers and Guardians have faced each other since like high A ball.
Yeah.
They've been opponents since the Midwest League. Carpenter was joking. It's like, I've said hi to Bo Naylor more times than I can remember over like the last 4 years. Like there's just like so many guys who've come up like these parallel paths. Now, they don't overlap as much with like the White Sox, the Royals, and the Twins, but there is a little bit of overlap there. So you do see some like, the Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson saw Joe Ryan when he first came over to the Twins because right after the deadline, like the Twins AAA affiliate came through Toledo and just shoved against them. So it's like they knew about Joe Ryan before a whole lot of major league people knew about Joe Ryan. So it's like those little factors, like how can can the Royals and Guardians accelerate their buildup maybe more. And how far off are the White Sox? We saw signs down the stretch that the White Sox have a fairly good young core being built. They have a lot of learning to do, but if they can get the pitching figured out, they might be better sooner than you think. Maybe not next year, but maybe after that.
You're doing a great job of convincing me that the Central is going to be better, but I'll believe it when I see it. They started off this year like on fire, and I'm like, oh, this is the first, and then they kind of fell back to where they were. So we should try to dumb this down, which is going to be hard, Jason, because you're smart. So I'll let Eric.
Oh man, that seems harsh.
I love Eric. Eric, try to dumb it down for us. Do the best you can. Do you have any questions that your non-baseball fan, Michigan's True Spirit podcast listener would want to know the answer to?
I'm only feeling marginally insulted by the Tigers, guys. I see how it is. Yeah, we're supposed to talk about Michigan, Jason, and all the good things that we enjoy about Michigan. Of course, you baseball savants traveling across the country, exploring all the exotic locales
Oh
such
yeah,
as Kansas City
houses.
and Cleveland.
Jeez, oh,
Um,
Pete's.
so actually Seattle and Los Angeles, like those places look actually cool. But so my question to you is when you get back home, you're back in Michigan, no more exotic locales. What is your comfort experience? What's the comfort thing that you need? Like, oh, I'm back home. I'm gonna get this thing that feels homey to me. Do you have anything you go to?
You know what? One of my low-key favorite things to do is, so I am a runner,
Oh
as
yeah, yeah.
Chris knows. So I like to run a few days a week. One of the things I like to do every so often is drive up to Rochester and do some trail running up
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Um, either on the Paint Creek Trail, or there's like a couple other trails that intersect right around there. You can go through, and there's like the great thing about the trails in that area is it can give you any sort of different sense you want. You want to run through downtown Rochester? Great. We got a trail that runs right through there. You want to run through some of the more like woodsy areas there? Sure. Go running along these old, what used to be this old railroad that
Mhm.
we've turned into these running trails. And, you know, it feels like when I do that too, like more times than not, I end up seeing deer right along the trail.
Mm.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
Whether I'm running in summer or fall, they are there. And at one point, it's like, okay, like, should I be frightened about this? Should I just try to like run along my regular, go about my business and pretend like I don't see them? Should I stop to wait until they cross? Like, like at some point, like I think it was earlier this summer, like I went up there after. I love to do this after a day game, by the way, because
Mm.
it's like, especially during the summer, you have daylight until like 8:30, maybe closer to 9. So I can get out from a 1 o'clock game, make the drive all the way up there. Yeah, it takes a little bit, but it's worth it. And like, seems like when you get around sunset, you see the deer. And
Yeah.
like, I remember one day, like I'm running along one of the paths and I see a deer and it's, got some of the kids there and it sees me and it stares and it's like, okay, should I just keep on running now? And then it starts taking a few steps towards me. It's like, I'm not getting charged by a deer, am I? And it's like, okay, I'm going to stop now. And then it turns out it was just running to find like its little entry into like a side trail. So
Yep.
it wouldn't be bothering anybody anymore. But it's like there's that split second. It was like, am I going to get charged by a deer? Like, but it's like, if that to me feels like it's one of the things I love about Michigan is that you can go from, if you want to do urban running, like
Mhm.
along the riverfront, which I've also done this summer, you can do that. You want to drive like a half hour or so and go into trail running and see deer, you can do that. Like it is so awesome to be able to do this as a runner and to be able to enjoy like, you know, keep like a different mix of like scenery and keep yourself interested and motivated and kind of like I've learned more to enjoy the scenery while I'm running instead of just trying to keep up a certain mile, minute per mile pace.
Do you take in any sports in the off season? Like, do you go watch college basketball in Michigan? Like, what's kind of your favorite sport? Your kind of favorite venue in Michigan outside of work when you want to get away?
I'll go to some Pistons games every once in a while. It's fun to do. I was helping out there for a couple summers. I was, what, every so often, if they would need somebody to do stats for like the visiting radio, I would hop in and like do a game. Just part of it was like just to keep like my scorekeeping skills like fresh for whenever the season would start and kind of keep from rusting away. But part of it too was just like it was fun to go out and watch a basketball game. And it's like I'm not really doing that anymore, but I still love going out there and checking out games. It's I'll watch some hockey, not a ton. College basketball, like I'll go to like
Xavier?
a University of Michigan game. Yeah, yeah, I love going to I love watching Xavier, but it's like they don't come through Michigan very often, which is
Yeah.
part of the problem. Like I think the last time they came through Michigan was in like 2016, 2017
Are
when they
you an
played at
alum or
Michigan.
how did you get connected to
I am
Xavier?
an
No,
alumnus.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, I did graduate from there. So, yeah, that was kind of how I got my tie in there. But so it's like I will watch, go out and watch some of that. Obviously, like during the baseball season, I'm busy a lot with time, but I do love going out to watch minor league baseball. I mean, granted, Toledo's in Ohio, but having that like an hour away is cool. I love going out to watch a West Michigan Whitecaps game. I think that's one of the best kept secrets in the States. But it's not just them. Like you have other affiliates in the Midwest League, like right in the state. Like it's such a good spot to watch future major league talent before they become big, but also B, like it's such a good atmosphere to catch a game and like have a beer or a drink and like have a hot dog or a burger, whatever you want, and kind of watch baseball in like this laid back but cool and somewhat intimate setting. I mean, where it's like you feel like you're right on top of the action and you feel like you can just kind of hang out. And it kind of reminds you of like part of what makes baseball such a great game for
Yeah.
just hanging out and bonding with friends or family or whatever.
Hmm.
Thanks, Jason, for coming
Thank
on.
you.
We appreciate your time. That was super interesting and helpful for all the Tigers fans out there. So appreciate your time, man.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be on this. Like this is fun to be able to talk not just ball, but like my favorite things about Michigan,
That's good.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jason.
including some of the beer.
Thanks, Jason.
Excellent. Thanks, man. You're listening to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast. North River Vodka. It's Michigan's True Spirit.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to Michigan's True Spirit podcast. We are all about enjoying the good things in Michigan. And whatever it is that we enjoy. In a couple weeks, I'm actually going down for my third annual bourbon trip to Kentucky. So I'm excited to do that with some friends. And I've been noticing a couple bourbon festivals around the state of Michigan. There's, of course, Michigan-based bourbons, which I shouldn't say this out loud, but I feel are somewhat inferior just due to the, climate or whatever. But Detroit's Bourbon Festival is past, but I think there's one in Muskegon that is coming up. So, Christopher, what do you feel? How do you feel about bourbon, and how do you feel about the city of Muskegon?
I think I haven't spent a ton of time in Muskegon, but the times I've been over there, I think it's kind of underrated. Like I feel like it gets kind of a bad reputation, as do I think a lot of towns in Michigan that they call tough towns. Like all the towns in Michigan might have tough spots, but they've got really nice areas too.
Yeah.
And Muskegon seemed like a really nice area. I enjoy myself some drinking a bourbon right now. Enjoy myself some bourbon, but I don't pretend to be a connoisseur. Like I watch people taste it and they're like, oh, it's got a whatever finish and great mouthfeel, and I'm like, whatever, dude. Like it's fine. And I'm a firm believer that you can get a really good $28 bourbon and a really crappy $200 bourbon.
It's
Um,
probably true.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I like myself some whiskey and some bourbon occasionally.
Mhm.
So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been down. This will be my third time to Kentucky. We've toured a bunch of places. I like to go down there with friends and explore and do tastings. And I've toured um, a place called Augusta Brewing, which is kind of more towards the Covington area. And but then I toured Bullitt, been to Louisville, Whiskey Row. So I do love bourbon. I always have. I don't like stockpile bottles, but I always have like 7 or 8 bottles in the house of different kinds. Some fancy, some not. But you're right. Like you can buy $28. You can buy Evan Williams bottled in bond. You can buy a Wild Turkey 101 and have a great time. You can buy some Jefferson's Ocean Aged or whatever for $1 million and have no good time. So yeah, it really varies, but it's bourbon. You can't screw it up too much. So,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
When you go on the bourbon trail down in Kentucky, there
Mhm.
are programs you can join, like Maker's Mark hat. You can become a Maker's Mark ambassador, and they'll send you paperwork
Mhm.
with like a seal. Um, do you do this? Do you become like a? Do you join these clubs?
No, we just hit, but last year we did what's called the Beeline, which is basically the south of Cincinnati. You get into Covington. There's like a secondary cluster of distilleries, and they have like their Chamber of Commerce or their promotional arm or whatever really hypes that up, and you get a little booklet and they like have recommended restaurants and tours and stuff. You could do the Beeline. And it's kind of cute. It kind of gives you a little bit of guide. So that was something we actually followed. And you do this little passport, and then if you get so many stamps, they send you something. It was really kind of a clever idea. It's gimmicky, yes, absolutely, but also like it gives you some kind of guidance to go off of. So we really enjoyed. I recommend the Beeline if you're going to do it. You have a lot of driving to do because the stuff's a little spread out, but it's a fun time.
Years ago,
The Billies.
my family has a place in the Manistee River that used to be my dad's place before he passed away, and my family gathers there every year. And it's been 15 years now. But there was a debate at the river one summer on July 4th weekend because somebody that was at the river was like a Maker's Mark ambassador,
Mhm.
and somebody else was like a captain of the whatever whiskey,
Mhm.
and they were debating who held rank. And
Sure.
at some point, we determined that a notary public would hold rank over all of them.
Right.
So in the 12 months that followed, I became a notary public
Wow, did you?
solely for
Fancy.
the practical joke purposes. It's the most money I've ever spent. I mean, I spent like $150 on the
You have the
stamp, and
stamp and yeah.
I had to go to the Secretary of State's office, raise my right hand, and promise to like execute my duties as a notary public. And I was trying not to laugh because all I was doing. So I showed up at the river the next year, and I like just walked up with a card table and a sign that said notary public, and I had my stamp, and I had a little tip jar. I made $5, so I actually lost $130. I should have taken it as a business expense, but
It's a lot of
notary
effort for a bit.
publics outrank. It was the most effort I put into a bit, as you say. That just cheapens it. So, but closer to home, while we're talking about whiskey, I would like to mention, I think before when I discussed that someday I was going to run for office, the whole Mackinac Bridge paying tolls one way and not both ways would save us all kinds of money. My other thing, when I am governor of this great state of Michigan someday, every restaurant that sells whiskey will have something that Stella's in Grand Rapids has.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Tell the people what this is about.
First of all, if you've ever been to Grand Rapids, you should go to Stella's. They have really good burgers, and I think they have like 100 whiskeys available. But what they always have is something that they call a break-even bottle. And the break-even bottle is usually a really expensive bottle of whiskey, and you can get one shot per person per visit at cost. So if you show up and the break-even bottle is a $250 bottle of whiskey, say, that is normally about $50 is what you would pay for a shot. It's a 5 times markup. But when you get the break-even bottle, you pay $10. So what you can do is you can sample whiskey at cost, find the one you love, and then you can go buy the bottle rather than spending $250 on a bottle of whiskey, buying it and hating it. Which this isn't a bourbon, this is a whiskey story. It's an Irish whiskey story. I once paid off. Previous house I lived in was paid off at some point, and I decided I was going to go buy a really expensive bottle of alcohol to drink. And I didn't have as much money as for the one that I really wanted, and I bought a bottle of Irish whiskey, and I got it home. It's the most expensive bottle of alcohol I'd ever purchased, and it tastes like burnt peat. It would have tasted better if it was burnt peat, P-E-T-E, than burnt peat, P-E-A-T. Like the remains of a human being in a glass would have tasted better than this bottle. And I ended up giving it to my brother-in-law. But if I had sampled it at the break-even bottle, never would have made that mistake. Would have saved myself some money.
I don't get into the Scotch stuff. I don't know.
It wasn't Scotch. It was Irish whiskey, which
Well, yeah, okay.
That's not the same as Scotch. I don't.
No, they're
get into
different
Scotch at all.
countries, kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. Awesome. Thanks for the awesome geography lesson. So yes, everybody that sells whiskey should have a break-even bottle.
It's a good thing. Like we're promoting it so they cycle through more break-even bottles, so we get something different every time.
Absolutely.
If you go back to back nights, it's going to be the same bottle. But
if you get a good server and you go and get a shot out of the break-even bottle, and somebody at your table does not get a shot out of the break-even bottle, you can game the system and have them order.
Yeah, they want one too.
We did that too.
Yeah.
Like truth be told,
I'll have one, and they definitely want one as well.
Yeah, we'll have 4, even though the 2 of us are going to have both of them. So let's get it on the ballot. You know how easy it is to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot in Michigan. I feel like it's probably already on the ballot because
you're a notary public, so you should be able to get that done.
Actually, my term expired. It was like a 9-year term. I never notarized anything. You can't notarize for family, and the only people that knew I was a notary was my family. So yeah, big business loss. It wasn't even a break-even notary.
That's the best accomplishment since I won mixed doubles disc golf championship one year. You got to flex when you can.
We're going to have to save disc golf for another episode because I feel like we need to focus the entire 40 minutes on.
We didn't talk about Muskegon at all, but this is my.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we didn't.
This is that's fine. My. Look for the publications about the upcoming Bourbon Festival in Muskegon. Come check it out. I'm sure we'll talk about Muskegon more later. So enjoy, friends. That was my.
North River Vodka. It's Michigan's true spirit. Now back to Chris and Eric.
Welcome back to the Michigan's True Spirit podcast. I'm Chris. I'm here with Eric, and we are in our final segment, which means we are running out of time to do the legal requirement that we have to do and remind you to drink responsibly. If you're not going to drink responsibly, don't drink at all. This is a little segment we like to call Rock or Crock. This is where I tell Eric about a band that's coming to Michigan to play. I give him their real name. I give him their fake name, and he has to determine which is Rock or which is Crock. I believe Eric's record at Rock or Crock is 2-4. He did, however, win the last time, and he has a shot at his first ever winning streak. So, Eric, are you ready to play Rock or Crock?
My body is percolating with energy.
How did you survive a week off between Rock or Crock? Did you play a practice round at home? Like, did you have your kids make up big band names so you could practice? Like, it's sweeping the nation. Like,
I just stared into the abyss.
Rock or Crock is the next 6-7.
Is it? Well, if I hear 6-7 one more time, let me tell you. Oof.
The good news is I'm not tired of it because I was so late to the game that it hasn't beaten me to death. But I'm not a teacher, thank God. No, let's get back to business. Unless you want.
I have a child of 6-7 age, and let me tell you, it's a thing. Oh gosh. Okay,
Rock or Crock. Eric. Are you ready to play Rock or Crock?
Yeah, I've been ready. My body is ready.
All right. You know how I can't speak. Like, I'm a terrible podcaster because I have a hard time enunciating. But this description of this band is so confusing that I'm really going to have to focus. Are you ready?
I got my pencil.
This band is described as Titanic garage frog drenched in psychedelia. This is an Indianapolis-based psych prog band blending the genres to create their own brand of goblin prog. I don't know what any of these words are. This is like you. It's like you talking about whiskey glasses. I'm lost already. Formed in March of 2018, they've had the pleasure of oozing psych goodness atop countless show attendees in years past. Their albums include Slimy Clump,
Okay.
A Daydream Dark, and Lady of Many Faces.
Hmm.
Do you need any repetition, or are your notes good to go? Are you proper?
I think I'm locked and loaded.
Titanic, Garage, Proc, Drenched in
What was the
Psychedelia,
first album name?
Slimy Clump.
Slimy Clump.
Is this band name Moon Goons?
Moon Goons. Okay.
Or is this band named, do you need spellings? Moon
No,
Goons is pretty clear, right?
I think I got it.
Or is this band named Nervous Rex? Rex.
Okay. I have a first inclination. I'm trying to get a read, but all I see is the back of your hand. Okay. Nervous Rex, like Oedipus Rex or Tyrannosaurus Rex. I get it. Clever. It's clever in a way that it was almost manufactured by somebody trying to come up with a good band name. Moon Goons to me seems more organic, and it does lend itself to indie goblin prog garage psychedelia. I think I think Moon Goons is the real band name, and Nervous Rex is the Crock, is the fake band name. Final answer.
I'm sad to inform you that we have to stop this podcast permanently because you now have your first ever winning streak.
Ah, got it.
Congratulations.
Nailed
Also, I
it.
swiped left on my screen somehow and lost you entirely. Congratulations, Moon Goons is the real band.
I knew it.
I've actually seen Moon Goons.
Really?
The famous show where our friend Joe and I went to Indianapolis, where we saw Tiger Cub
Hmm.
headline and Pat and the Pissers
You
was
do
an
love
opening
Pat.
band.
You do love Pat
Pat,
Pissers.
I got to tell you, like, we're the only two people on earth right now on the internet talking about Pat and the Pissers. Pat and the Pissers are punk rock gods, and you should experience them once in your life. But another band that was on the bill, we saw Moon Goons. What it made it even more unusual is they sound exactly like this description, but there was a lot of confusion. I think Tiger Cub got there late, and it was raining a million inches a minute, and the concert started late, so they eventually let us all in. I think because they didn't want us to get soaked anymore, but we watched sound check.
Okay.
So Moon Goons were on stage like in jeans and t-shirts doing sound check and talking to the sound guy while we were all standing there looking at them, which was awkward enough. But then they went backstage and got like in costume
What
and
does a
came
moon
back
goon
out.
dress like?
You're gonna have to Google it. I don't recall exactly what it was, but it was I think it was more would have been a surprise on its own, but it was a bigger surprise because 5 minutes earlier they just looked like the rest of us in jeans and t-shirts, but then they had to go into it would be like watching sound check with Kiss
Yeah.
without the makeup, and then 5 minutes later here they come all in makeup.
But they didn't come like out in like NASA astronaut concert,
No, it was more just maybe odd alien. You Google. It's been a while, and I love myself some Tiger Cub. They had a rough night. I think they got there late and had an issue with the sound guy. Pat and the Pissers was the highlight of the show, in my opinion. As much as I love Tiger Cub, and I've seen it before, and I'll see him again. One of my favorite bands, but Moon Goons.
I'm on a roll, man.
Congratulations.
I got two in a
Yeah,
row.
that's 2 in a row. You're 3 and 4. I'm gonna have to pull out something next
Yeah,
week.
get better. I'm
I
passing
listen.
now.
Here's the other thing: is I'm not gonna blame my youngest daughter, but I actually gave her two choices to try to trick you, and she selected Nervous Rex.
Oh,
So
shit.
actually, she's 0-1, and I'm still 4-2, is what I've determined.
Yeah, throw your
I think
child under the bus. I see
my
how it is.
child under the bus. Absolutely. That was Rock or Crock. Congratulations to Eric.
Yeah.
Thanks to me and Eric for doing this again this week.
Yeah.
Always thank
Congratulations to you for listening. Good job.
ourselves. Yeah, hope you made it this far. Should we say thank you to the people who we still think are listening by name?
Thank you to the
Thanks to my
Ian family.
sisters.
Yeah.
Thanks to my sisters and three of my friends. Thanks to, as always, Logan for producing. Thanks for
Yes.
Jason Beck of MLB.com,
Yes,
longtime Detroit
Beck.
Tigers reporter, for coming on.
God.
Thank you for listening. Yeah. Anything else? Any final words to say to people besides like, subscribe, auto download, share, rate, review,
Just be
set
you.
crypto?
I appreciate you for who you are, friends. You're always good with me. Goodbye.
Good night.